Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Today, before we get things kicked off for week 0, we have a very special guest returning to the show, the man that they call the most accurate in college football preview magazines for the last 10, 11 years, Brett Ciancia of Pick Six Previews. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mitch. I appreciate it. It's that time of year again. It's preview magazine season. And it's the 15th annual Pick Six Previews edition. We have the hard copy, the digital, the in-season product for weekly picks and projections. But yeah, best time of year. We are now a week away from kickoff. I can't wait and excited to break down the season with you.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, let's get right into it. A couple of key questions that I sent over to you when we were talking about doing this. And first and foremost, I think a clip that certainly struck a chord in my heart. You and I share our national championship pick this year. You tweeted that last year you were on the Oregon bandwagon for 2026 being the year of the Duck. As I look up and down their roster, it's loaded, so much experience. Dan Lanning has continued to prove that he has what it takes to be a championship caliber coach, but he hasn't gotten there quite yet. What makes you believe that Oregon can be different this year and can win their first ever national championship game?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're right. It started last year in the 2025 magazine research process, and I do all 68 Power Four teams. It's a one-man show. I go team by team, position by position. And when I was going through Oregon last year in 2025, I was blown away by the amount of five-star talent and top 100 recruits and four-star transfers that they have stockpiled up in Eugene. When you look at their recruiting rankings, it's 3 straight top 5 classes from the high school ranks, and then back-to-back top 5 transfer hauls on top of that. They're the only team to combine the two categories. So they have an insane amount of talent up there. But when I was doing the research last year, I remember seeing it was a lot of freshmen or redshirt freshmen. So I thought, you know what, they're going to be talented in 25, but too young. So I wrote there in the book last year that not for this year, 25, but for 2026, I'm going to call for them to be the national champions next year. So fast forward 12 months, I'm sticking with that. And they're on the cover there as my national champion pick. I think they're going to do it. I think it'll be the 4th straight Big Ten national champion, 4th different Big Ten champion. Not that that's the reason I did it. Like I said, it's all about the talent acquisition up there. And then on the field, they were ahead of schedule last year. They were top 5 offense and top 5 defense for me. Again, the only team in the country to be in the top 5 of both categories. So they've got it all. I mean, I don't really find many weaknesses here. Quarterback's back, Dante Moore. He could have gone pro, could have gone the first round. He returns. They're healthy and talented at receiver and running back again. The D-line, all 4 guys are on my all Big Ten team. So this team's loaded. I know the coordinators are changing, but they're keeping it internal from what worked last year, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, I think it's Oregon's year. Now, they're not going to go undefeated. It's such a hard schedule. But once they get to January, they have the depth to make a run.
Yeah, I'm glad you included that last part because I've had discussions with people that think that Oregon can go 12-0. I think they drop at least 1 game. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop 2, given the difficult nature of that schedule. But as I wrote in our preview guide, just get a ticket to the dance, right? And for all those reasons you listed, if Oregon can make the 12-team playoff toe-to-toe against anybody in the country, I think that they are certainly a force and a team that I really like to go all the way as well. Now, let's stay in the Big Ten because, and I think we'll talk about the Big Ten and the SEC here in just a second, but the Big Ten, for my money this year, draws my eyes to the top of the conference a little bit more than the SEC. So the Indiana Hoosiers obviously complete a Cinderella story last year, not because they weren't a good team, not because they were some dark horse, but just because of the history of the program, right? Formerly the losingest college football program, and then they complete this 16-0 historical run under Kurt Cignetti. A lot of people have said that Indiana is even better this year than they were last year. First of all, how do you feel about that statement? And then how do you evaluate Indiana's chances as they try and defend this championship?
Well, yeah, I think you're right to start out with what an incredible story it was. He didn't need 10 or 20 years to turn this thing around. It happened the first year playoff, second year 16-0 national champion. I mean, I think it is the best coaching job I've ever seen in college football history. There were other turnaround stories like at Kansas State with Bill Snyder and Florida State with Bobby Bowden. But you look at those, it took decades to really develop them. And nobody knocked out a 16-0 in their second season like that. So tremendous season. I put this in the magazine. It's a shame they already used the title Hoosiers for a sports movie because, I mean, that is like a script, a perfect Hollywood script. Now, can they be better than last year? That's hard to top. That's a high bar. 16-0, Heisman winner. They really dominated their opponents too. I mean, they blew Alabama off the Rose Bowl turf, destroyed Oregon. Once in Eugene, it was closer, but then destroyed them in the playoff there, the Final Four, and then had the highlight reel plays at the end of the national title game. So you can't script anything better than that. Statistically, very dominant last year. The offense averaged 42. They only allowed 11. So a plus 31 per game, points per game margin. It's unbelievable. So I don't think they're going to match those kind of high standards. Now, with that said, I don't think they're going to fall back to the old Indiana all of a sudden, the old punching bag of the Big Ten. I think it's still a top 10 team. I'm confident to put them back into my playoff bracket, but I've got them third in the conference behind the Oregon and Ohio State tier. Yeah, I mean, there's some strengths. Defense is going to be elite again. The defensive line, they reloaded 2 Kansas State starters into their defensive line. It's going to be sharp. Offensive line, they're trying to win the Joe Moore Award with 4 guys back from last year's line. So a lot to like on this roster again. The loss of a Heisman winner, first overall pick quarterback, that's a question. I know Josh Hoover's experienced, but that's enough to knock them out of the number 1 spot overall for me.
A question that's a little off our run sheet here, but you putting Indiana third makes me think of this. Had a discussion with another podcast host about USC this year, and I have USC in my playoff field, basically because I have run out of excuses for them not to get it done this year. It's such a talented team. It's a difficult schedule. Yes, absolutely. But the home road splits are extremely favorable for the Trojans. Where do you have USC this year on what feels like it really is a knife's edge for Lincoln Riley out west?
Well, Mitch, I think it's strength in numbers here. It's good company having you with these picks because we agree on Oregon. We agree on USC being a playoff team. So I like that. I agree with you. I mean, I think it's playoff or bust here for USC. And think back to this time last year. The heat was starting to rise on that hot seat. It was getting warm over there. He needed to do enough to keep his job to then get to that number 1 recruiting class that they were projected to sign. And he went 9-3. That did enough. They signed the number 1 class. And a lot of that talent comes on the defensive front 7. That's what they've been missing for about a decade out at USC. Now, I think I'm a little older than you, but not by much. But when I was growing up, we had Taylor Mays, this hard-hitting safety, Ray Malaluga. Like, these were nasty USC fronts. They were scary. And it's been quite some time since they've had that kind of SC defense. So they are now starting to put these 5 stars together in that defensive line. They brought a couple starters over from Michigan State, from Penn State, have a freshman All-American there with Jakeem Stewart on the defensive line. And then they upgraded their coordinator too, bringing Gary Patterson. He built defenses for decades at TCU. So I like the total package. You know what you're getting from the offense with Lincoln Riley. It's a top 10 unit every year. 8 starters are back on that side. So I know what I'm signing up for offensively. I think it's enough jump on defense to break through. Now, is that 10 or 9 wins? I don't know. I still think that 4 Big Tens are going to make the bracket. So however you slice it, I think they're going to get in the playoff, whether it be a 10-2 or a 9-3, as long as they finish 4th in the Big Ten. Because I think the Big Ten and SEC are both going to get 4 into the bracket this year.
Okay. Well, we're aligned there. Does it make you nervous with Gary Patterson? And we'll talk about Texas in a second. They're bringing Will Muschamp in as defensive coordinator. 2 guys that have so many skins on the wall, obviously revered on the defensive side of the ball. But it's also been a minute since they've called plays.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe a little bit rusty in that sense, but no, these guys know football. They are coaching legends, especially in the case of Patterson. So, and he was quoted back, I think in spring ball, he was saying he's never had a defensive line this big. And, you need to be careful with coach speak here and there, but we're a guy that's been a head coach for 20 years on some really solid teams back in the WAC, the Mountain West, Big 12, had some near playoff runs and undefeated season. Like that's high praise for him to throw out there. He didn't have to say that. So, and if you look at these heights and weights, I kind of believe him too. So no, I think there's some serious firepower on defense. You got coaches in the room now that are veteran. I think it's going to click. I mean, it kind of has to for Lincoln Riley. And, but yeah, the schedule is tough. That's why I'm a little hesitant to say, a lock for 10 wins. They play all 3 of the playoff trio there, plus Washington, plus Penn State. But I think there's enough on the bone there to go 9-3, probably have 2 or 3 ranked wins and be able to stack that resume up against some of these other 9-3s from the SEC.
Well, the section of our fan base that is down here in the southeastern part of the country is going, okay, enough Big Ten. get to the good stuff. Let's talk SEC. You teased just a minute ago. You've got 4 teams from the SEC in, and I'll talk about those in a second. But I feel like, have to start with kind of the news cycle, where the news cycle has taken us. That's down to the 40 acres. There's a lot of stuff coming out from these practices, the off season that's gone on in the 40 acres. Steve Sarkisian obviously went out, spent a ton of money on this offense, on both sides of the ball, but specifically on the offense with Cam Coleman, Hollywood Smothers at running back, Raleek Brown also coming in at running back. The offensive line is stout in front of Arch Manning as well. What we've heard through, whether it's Tyler Horka, Orange Bloods, different sources, that Arch has really had a tough time completing passes, keeping drives going against their ones on defense. How concerned are you, or not at all, are you by some of the struggles that Arch has had, and where do you have Texas in the SEC pecking order?
Yeah, well, before any of those quotes came out, back when I published mid-July, I was skeptical of the whole Texas hype that was happening again. We did this last year. Arch Manning came in as the preseason Heisman favorite. They were picked number 1 in the AP poll preseason, and they did not live up to that at all. Lost a couple games in September. At one point, he threw 10 straight incompletions and got booed off the field at his home field. Now, to his credit, he was a young first-time starter. He did develop and grow as the season went on. He looked night and day. Really improved down the stretch in October, November, and went out and outdueled Marcel Reed there in the season finale against A&M. So he really grew up. I'm a believer in him going forward. So some of these practice quotes, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just the defense being really strong. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I know what I saw from him in October, November. So I think he's solid. My question for them overall is their offensive line, actually. I know that on paper it looks solid, but in my O-line run push metric, back-to-back years below average, below the national average. 80th and 90th in consecutive seasons. They're going to need a better, more consistent run push to really compete for an SEC title or a national title, which they want to hope to get to. So I have them third in the SEC. I've got Georgia as the champion and Oklahoma playing them in Atlanta. So I think Oklahoma wins their Red River Shootout in Dallas.
So, and that's a fascinating point. When I read the magazine, I've seen a lot of Oklahoma hype. They've got a difficult schedule. And so while I do believe that they can make the playoff, I have them as a playoff team. Reaching the SEC championship game was a little bit of an eyebrow raise for me. So tell me specifically, like, what is Oklahoma's calling card? Is it the defense still? Is it a step forward in the offense? Like, if you had to hang a hat on a nail of an identity, what are you leaning towards?
Well, it definitely starts with the defense. That's what caught my eye. I mean, you watch these Oklahoma games the last couple of years now with Brent Venables. They're flying all over the field. They're aggressive. They tackle well, and they really make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. They were number 1 in my negative play rate, which tracks how frequently teams are making, tackles for loss, sacks, stuffs at the line of scrimmage. They broke my record of negative plays. So right, that was the starting point. That's what got them to the playoff last year. They had a nice season. But then when I went through the research process, I was blown away. I was going position by position, and it's like, oh, that guy's back, that guy's returning. How are these guys all returning? So it ends up being, I think, 8 starters back, 6 were all SEC caliber, and then I think 8 of them also are on the NFL draft watch list. Like this defense is off the charts, could be the best in the country. So I know what I'm getting on that side of the ball. We've already seen it for 2 years. It's the same players. But I think the biggest jump is going to be on the offensive side. Now, last year, it was an experiment. You had the Washington State quarterback and coordinator both moving up to the SEC with Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. They took some lumps, and then Mateer got injured with his hand, was messed up for most of the season. I think together, their scheme, their coordinator, their quarterback all make a second-year jump here. And then also the offensive line, too, because that was supposed to be a strength with these veteran linemen. It wasn't. All these young freshmen and sophomores beat them out throughout the season. They struggled. Now I think now a more experienced line together is going to be take a step forward. So I'm looking for an elite defense again, but then a big step forward for this offense, a second-year bonus in all those categories.
You've got Georgia winning the SEC championship. That would be 3 straight for Kirby Smart and the Dogs. What about Georgia continues to place them ahead of Texas and Oklahoma and Ole Miss and LSU and Texas A&M in your mind?
Well, it's high school recruiting, and they're still doing it the old-fashioned way where they absolutely dominate now on signing days. It's really them, Ohio State, and Alabama, and now Oregon. Those are like your top four every year. It's just a conveyor belt of five stars, and it really blows my mind when I do for the Pick Six Plus subscribers. I call them advanced rosters, where I break down every team. They're too deep, where they came from, were they five stars, four stars, the whole bit, and the amount of blue on the page, blue for blue chip. Like, these are all blue chip players for Georgia. I think half their two deep are five stars on defense. It's like unbelievable. So the sheer talent levels on their defense really stands out to me. Also, they rotate more than anybody on defense. The amount of snaps, they keep each other fresh. They have specialized packages. So when you talk starting lineup, you got to go two deep, even three deep on their defense. And there's no drop off in talent. It's unbelievable. So it's really about that defense. This is the kind of defense that wins championships for Kirby Smart. He's got it going this year. So yeah, love the defense. Gunnar Stockton's back at quarterback. Big offensive line, proven guys, all American caliber guys on the O line. I'm waiting for a receiver to emerge. That is one spot that held me back from calling for a national championship as opposed to an SEC title. I want to see some of these five-star guys really emerge. It's been quite some time since they've had a real game-changing guy on the outsides, like a 6'5", 50-50 jump ball guy that is going to win the game. They've done it in spite of that, but I want to see that position emerge as well. But total package, yeah, they're my SEC champs. They also have an easier schedule draw from the SEC. It's all relative. It's still a tough schedule, but they only play three of the top half of the conference. Others play 4, 5, or 6. So it's an easier league draw. I think they're going to get to Atlanta and win it.
Well, I love it. I'm with you there. As SEC schedules go, it felt favorable, and they've certainly paid their dues, right? They had the schedule from hell. What was it, two years ago? Went 10-2 through that. Just managed to survive, and hey, business as usual once they get to the postseason. So Georgia winning the conference. You've got Oklahoma losing the SEC championship game. You've got Texas in, but you mentioned 4 teams from the SEC make the playoff. Who's getting that final ticket to the dance?
Yeah, well, for the SEC listeners, I think it's the deepest conference this year. Now, I might have called that Oregon's going to win it all, and Ohio State's my number 2, and I've got Miami and Notre Dame high as well. But in terms of depth of the conference, half this SEC, half of the 16 teams I've got as playoff contenders. Now, not all 8 are going to make it at the same time, as much as the Southern listeners and viewers want to see that. But I think the 4th spot's going to go to Ole Miss, and this is a team that really grew up in January last year. They played for their new head coach, Pete Golding. They played really well. They made it to the Final Four. They bring back a lot, too. They bring Trinidad Chambliss back, the quarterback, Keywan Lacey, an All-American running back. The interior of that offensive line returns. And then what really changed my opinion even more for the positive was what they did on defense. Now that Golding's in charge, he put a lot more of their funds, their budget, their transfer energy towards the defensive side of the ball. 8 4-stars on defense through the transfer market. That's off the charts. That might be the most on any side, one side of the ball in the country. So a huge talent boost to the defense. You're getting on offense. Collectively, I like it as a playoff team. Really a no-brainer for me. I kind of penciled them in and left them there. I know it's plus money over at Vegas. It's not expected to happen, but they kind of answered all my questions off the checklist as I did my research.
Obviously, the 3 teams that immediately come to mind when I read your magazine and look at the bracket that missed: Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M. Which of those 3 do you expect to be the closest to getting in, most right on the bubble?
Well, I'll call for LSU here. I've really battled about what to do with LSU because I think it's the team with the most variable set of outcomes this year. I mean, they could go 15-1 and make a crazy playoff run and maybe national championship run, or maybe it's just too much change all at the same time and they go 6-6, and it's really the next year, the second year bonus for Lane Kiffin. So that's certainly a cop-out answer. I understand that. But in the magazine, I put them as the last team out. I had them as a bubble team for the playoff bracket, had them 12th overall. Now, 12th, you think 12-team playoff, that one spot's going to go to the G5. So they're really the last team out. What really caught my eye was their September schedule. Now, with so much change, you're talking 51 transfers coming to Baton Rouge. I know that Lane Kiffin's the portal king. He can probably manage that, but that's a lot of change right away. They might not know their top 22 players, their starting lineup yet at that moment. So they play Clemson right away. I think they're going to be fine there, but it'll still be competitive and physical. But then they go at Ole Miss into the Grove, a Kiffin reunion in the Grove. Could be Mississippi's biggest game of all time at home. I know College Game Day is already going there. But then they follow up after that emotional drain on the road. They come right back and play Texas A&M. And I don't know. I mean, they're going to drop some of these games. So I ended up going with them right on the outside of the bracket. It's deep though. You got A&M, you got Bama. I'm high on Tennessee this year. Auburn's a dark horse of what they did with their coaching hires. So really deep conference. I can't wait to see it unfold.
Yeah, I can't wait for SEC play. I found myself in the same spot, going, "Oh my gosh! Like, how do I rank? You know, you get 4 teams in, then how do I rank teams 5 through 10,
Yeah,
11? Like,
yeah.
there's a lot of special seasons that you could concoct just based on how you slice the data and look at the two deep. Let's go to the ACC because I think that is the other question that I had when I was putting together my personal playoff rankings. How many teams from the ACC make it in? First question right off the top. Is it a foregone conclusion that Miami finally wins an ACC championship?
I think so. And now it took them 20 years. Remember when they joined the ACC, they had their big bravado. They called it the All Canes Conference,
Yep.
ACC. Hasn't happened yet. Now, I will say, I'll grant them this, that I think last year they were the top team from the conference. They were on the bad end of a 5-way tiebreaker. I think they go and beat Duke or UVA in that title game had they had the chance, but they didn't win it yet. I think this is definitely the year to do it. This team, I think, upgraded from last year. I was high on them last year. They do lose Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor off the edges. But if you look at their defensive line, the way they recruit, half the two deep is 5 stars on the defensive line, 4 of them. The other 4 are top 100 recruits, which are basically near 5 stars. So, I mean, Justin Scott, Moten, these guys they're loaded again on the pass rush. So I think they're fine there. But I think they made a huge upgrade at quarterback. I know Carson Beck was veteran and won some games for them, but with Darian Mensah coming over from Duke and Tulane before that, really a vertical passer. He had the most downfield passes in America last year, and also a low interception rate. You think high risk, low risk, high reward types throws for him. So I like that. He's throwing to my number 2 receiver core in the country, Malachi Tony, an All American. There's just so much firepower. And then schedule. I think they really stack up well against the rest of this league. I ran my numbers this morning from my win totals article. Miami, they are 17-point favorites or more in 10 of their 12 games. It's just like there's only 2 games in question. It's the road trip to Notre Dame and then a road trip to Clemson, which I think will still be about a 8 to 10 point spread in favor of Miami. So this is their shot to do it. Everything is going their way. They have all the talent. They've got the coaching. They got the schedule. They got to go do it this year.
Well, you mentioned Clemson there, and that's the other interesting question that I wanted to ask you as we wrap this up. I published my ACC predictions just a couple of days ago, and without a doubt, Clemson was the team that the commenters mentioned the most, because as I look at their schedule, I look at their talent, what's going on in a vacuum, I say there's no way that this team doesn't win 10 games. But then again, I also picked them to be in the national championship game last year, and we saw how that went. There's a reason why you're the most accurate predictor. I am not. So what am I missing with Clemson that either could get them to 10 wins or, what holds them back? Like, how do you make sense of a team that is so talented, but also clearly kind of missing something?
Well, I'll say this. Don't beat yourself up too much about Clemson, the pick last year, because I was right there with you. I at least had them winning the ACC. I thought that was the no-brainer pick in the ACC last year, because here's why. I know that he's gone anti-transfer. He's more traditional with his roster building. I'm okay with that, and I think you know what you're signing up for in the sense that you want every few years, you want that team to be young, growing, returning starters, and finally, as veterans, you want to cash in, win your ACC, make a long playoff run, maybe every second or third year. Last year was supposed to be that veteran team, that big ACC title run, that championship run. They had all the seniors back. I think they were number 1 in the country in returning starters and returning production. These were 5-star guys. Everyone was back. 9 future NFL draft picks, just 7 wins. So if you can't win with the veteran style, now it reverts to the younger version of Clemson, where it's all these fresh starters, first time guys, freshmen, sophomores. So I don't know. I don't see how they can be any better than last year. But it was a tough one. Like in a vacuum, you think, if they won 7 games last year, how are they going to improve? But when you look at how they recruit, I mean, it's top 15 caliber. Aside of Miami, nobody else in the conference recruits at that clip. So they have some of the most talented players in the conference still. So I think there's enough firepower there at receiver, on their defense. I love Sammy Brown at linebacker. The receiver duo is solid. Quarterback's a big question for me, but with that schedule, I think you got to get to 8-9 wins. Anything above that would be really a nice coaching job. But yeah, this is one of those. It's a puzzle to figure out, because like last year was supposed to be the cash in year. It didn't happen, but they still recruit well. But there's no transfer influx. Like there's a lot of new variables with this team. But yeah, I think it's really Miami now at the forefront of the conference because they do both. They recruit and they bring in transfers, and they've already proven it on the field last year, last couple of years. So that's where I'm at. I think that the crown has shifted to Miami.
Last question for you. SMU and Louisville are the other two teams that are traditionally picked at the top of the conference when you look around other prediction markets, previews, etc. I have SMU winning that early game against Louisville, and for me, that ended up being the difference maker as I extrapolated across the season. If you had to buy one of those two teams, which one are you taking?
Yeah, I went with Louisville here, and I agree with you. Those are the number 2 and number 3 teams. That was the discussion point for me. They're definitely the two contenders to play Miami. Remember, both these teams beat Miami last year in the regular season, so I think they're solid teams. With SMU, you love their offense under Rhett Lashley. You get Kevin Jennings back. He's electric at quarterback. He's healthy too. Remember, he had a leg problem about half the season last year, limited his mobility. He's one of the best playmakers in the country. I mean, if you haven't watched this team play, you got to go watch this team. But their defense, that's what held me up with SMU, is that they lose 9 starters off the defense. All of their all conference guys are gone. I think they'll be okay, but it's really going to have to be some shootouts. With Louisville, I think it's a more complete team, offense and defense paired together. They were top 20 in my numbers, both sides of the ball last year. Only them and Miami from the conference were able to claim that. And they've been better than their record shows over the last couple of years. When you look at one-score losses, Braum has had 8 of them the last 3 years. Now, unless you're Scott Frost at Nebraska, that doesn't tend to be a trend. I mean, that tends to revert year to year. So I think they've been stronger than the record. And then I was talking to Coach Braum in my research process. I asked him about his quarterback because it stood out to me that instead of the usual pocket passer Braum quarterback, he found a 6'4", 230-pounder dual threat guy from Ohio State, Lincoln Keenholz. I asked him about this, and he kind of chuckled, and he said, yeah, they've got some surprises up their sleeves in terms of scheme and getting this guy running. So I think that his mobility is going to help in short yardage, in red zone touchdown conversion, third down conversions, some of those hidden yards and points in games. It's going to be huge. So I like the total package with Louisville. That's where I went with it. They only play one of the top 6 in the ACC, too, so a favorable schedule draw for them. I went Louisville to go over the 8.5 and to play Miami in the ACC title game.
I love it. I love it. Well, Brett, thank you so much for joining us today. For those that, again, somehow are not familiar with your work, your accolades, all the history that you've racked up over this decade plus, where can they find you? Where can they get your work?
Well, thanks so much. And it's not their fault because I'm the only one that's not in Barnes & Noble on books, on newsstands, in bookstores. It's really online only. It's pick6previews.com. Now, I say online only to order it, but we do have the hard copy. We have tangible hard copy products along with the digital version if you'd like that as well. And if you buy the hard copy, you also get the digital. That way, for those couple of days where it's being shipped to you, you can dive right in right away. All 68 teams. It's a one-man show. I'm talking to head coaches, coordinators, watching spring games, talking to local media, the whole bit. And then if you like the magazine, you're going to love the in-season product called Pick 6 Plus. It's basically like getting the magazine refreshed every week. I know that once we start this season, I have like 60 tabs open, 60 games I'm watching. To have it condensed into one PDF every Tuesday morning in your email inbox. It's got every matchup, every game, every recap, all the stats, all the against the spread picks, all right there. So go check it out, pick6previews.com. We got samples and testimonials. And thanks so much, Mitch. I mean, you guys continue to grow as well, and I'm hoping for a big 2026 for you guys. It's an honor to be on now, second straight year. We got to make it 3 in a row, and hopefully next time we're talking about how we were right about Oregon winning it all. We'll see what happens.
That's right. That would be tremendous. Let's bank on that. Let's raise a glass next year when the Ducks are national champions. Brett, we really appreciate you jumping on. Obviously, tremendous work in your career so far, and can't wait to see where you go next.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, well, for the Jimmies and Joes who stuck around to the end of the episode, we really appreciate it. Go follow Brett Ciancia at Pick 6 Previews. If you're new to the show, if you found us for the first time, because Brett is a celebrity, at 3 Tech Pod is where you can find us on all of our social media platforms as well. For Brett, I'm Mitch. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, so long, everybody.